My wife and her best friend slept with 3 different men and joined an infidelity group. I don't just want a divorce. I also plan to ruin the lives of those who hurt me. I was in my home office completing an invoice for one of my clients when I heard the front door open. Usually, I call out to my wife, Christine, to greet her and let her know that I am home. I held back because I was in the middle of a page, entering the itemized charges, and I did not want to lose my focus. That hesitation served me well. "Hey girl, Jerry is not home." "Right," I heard. I recognized the voice. It was Sandra, our neighbor and one of Kristen's closest friends. She must have seen Kristen arrive home and came over. "No, his car is not in the garage or the driveway. He said he had some things to do today." "What is up?" my wife replied as she walked to the kitchen. I heard the refrigerator door open. I was only at home without my car because it was in the shop. The dealership had driven me home, as it was closer than my usual office. I often worked from home, so I could work just as well here as in my office downtown. "Are you in the mood for some fun tonight?" Sandra asked. That certainly got my full attention. I completely forgot about the invoice. I reached for my phone and started recording the conversation. Christine laughed. "I would love to, but this is very last minute. I am not sure I can get away. Jerry mentioned something about going out to dinner. I was thinking of relaxing and having a glass or 2 of wine. Do you want some?" My home office was a converted room right next to the kitchen. I turned off the desk lamp and the computer monitor. The door was slightly ajar, and I did not want either of the 2 women to realize I was listening. I heard the clinking of glasses. They were too busy getting out glasses for their wine to hear me. "Come on, help me." Tammy was supposed to be my partner tonight, but her mother called her. "She is sick with some kind of stomach bug, so Tammy had to go help her," Sandra said. We had a double date with Eric and Rich. Tammy was the 3rd component of the trio. They started calling themselves the 3 Amigas in college. Sandra and Christina attended the same high school. Tammy joined them in their freshman year of college. The 3 of them shared an apartment for much of their time in college. I always suspected they shared more than an apartment. I met Kristen while she was in college, and we started dating in our senior year, so I knew Tammy and Sandra well. Both women had the sex drive and morals of wild animals. Both would sleep with anyone on the first date if they liked the guy a little. They both offered me the opportunity a few times. I turned it down because I was with Kristen. Kristen was much more reserved, the cautious one of the group. She was not a prude by any means, but not promiscuous either. At least that had been my impression while we were dating and during the 7 years of our marriage. She had admitted that she had been quite sexually active before we met, but she had always been loyal to me after that. I never had reason to doubt her in all the time we had been together until now. Listening to this conversation, I realized that my trust in my wife's faithfulness was gravely mistaken. Sandra was on her 3rd marriage. Neither she nor her first 2 husbands could stop being unfaithful. That was certainly true for her first husband. He would sleep with any girl who stood still long enough. Her second husband started an affair after he caught Sandra with a coworker. I thought it was justified, as he had already filed for divorce. Of course, Sandra claimed it was infidelity. In her twisted ideology, she could do whatever she wanted, but her husband had to remain faithful. I liked her current husband. He worked for the same company as me, as a service representative. He had to travel out of town a couple of times a month. He was a hard worker and a friend. He met Sandra at a party when I invited him to my house. He and Sandra had been married for just under 2 years. As soon as a house became available down the street, they bought it. Tammy never married. She had been engaged a few times, but she got cold feet each time. I suspected she wanted her freedom to have affairs more than a husband. She used to joke that variety was the spice of life. "You are a bitch. You know how much I want to go with you, but I love Jerry," Kristen declared. "I do not want to ruin what I have with him." "So what? Just because you love him does not mean you do not deserve to have fun," Sandra declared. "These guys are just for stress relief. They are certainly not for anything long-term, just toys." "I guess Bob is out of town," Kristen asked. Sandra said yes, until tomorrow, which was why she wanted to have some fun tonight. "You mean have a lot of fun?" Christine laughed. "Both guys are hung like horses. I bet they take pills every time they have a date. So, why do you need me tonight?" "You can handle those 2 guys," Christine asked. "We have all had relationships with those guys, but never with 2 on the same night. Brian is not here tonight. If you do not go, I will have to choose between Eric or Richard, and the one left out is going to be really pissed." "I want to go, but my problem is how to get away," Kristen said. "Usually, I only go with you and Tammy when Jerry goes to the fishing camp. He thinks I do not like to sit there in the swamp. Sometimes I like it. I just like going out with you guys more. And I might have to give up these guys soon. We are talking about having a baby. None of those guys look enough like Bob to risk getting me pregnant, and they refuse to use condoms. Okay, how about this? You tell Jerry that Tammy just broke up with her latest boyfriend, which is true, by the way. She feels bad about it. So we need to go comfort her, maybe drink wine and have a girls' night. That will also give you an excuse to stay out late or even not come back until morning. We will take my car and say we are too drunk to drive home. She will back you up too. You put on a sexy little dress, your heels, and bring it to my house before Jerry gets here. Then, you leave here dressed in normal casual clothes and change at my house. Jerry will not suspect a thing. Well, let us go gather your clothes and things and take them to my house before Jerry arrives. Otherwise we are screwed, or rather, we will not get screwed. In the darkness of my office, thinking about what I had just heard, my supposedly faithful wife had been cheating on me with at least those 3 guys and her 2 friends. Who knows how many others there had been before. I waited until I heard them coming back from the bedroom. Let me take a look outside first to make sure Jerry is not coming, Sandra said. Okay, all clear. Let us go. I heard the front door open and close. I went out the back door and around the house. I saw Kristen and Sandra turn right, towards Sandra's house, 2 houses down. As soon as they were out of sight, I turned left and walked fast. Before I reached the next block, I was already dialing my brother's number. My guts were churning with the anger I felt. Yes, I had loved Kristen with all my heart until about 30 minutes ago. We had even been talking about starting a family. What I heard in that conversation changed my feelings, filling me with rage. I began to imagine various scenarios, from following her and shooting the scumbag she was cheating on me with, to using one of those extendable batons and breaking some of his bones. Both scenarios would get me arrested. I took out my phone and called my brother. Dude, Jason declared when I explained the situation. I had no idea they were doing that stuff. Tammy is a slut, you know. I was with her a few times before I met Sue. I always wondered who else she might be with. So, what are you going to do? Jason had known the girls for almost as long as I had. I told him to come pick me up. By the time he picked me up, 20 minutes later, the dealership called to tell me my car was ready. I asked him to take me there. We are going to the grill for a beer. Some of the guys are waiting for us there, Jason said when I came out after paying the bill. I was not in the mood to drink, but Jason told me to cheer up and go. I got this. I followed his advice. I met both guys who were waiting for us. They were mutual friends of my brother and me. They would support me. One had gone through a divorce a few years earlier. He told me how rough it had been, but then he laughed and repeated the old joke about why divorces are so expensive. Because they are worth it. I told the 3 of them that I really did not have much to lose in a divorce. We had bought our house only 3 years ago, so we had almost no equity built up. I had focused on paying off my student loans as quickly as possible, so we only had a few thousand in combined savings and checking accounts. Kristen earned almost as much selling medical supplies as I did as a consultant. Child support was not an issue, nor were children. I wanted revenge, scorched earth. I wanted to identify the bastards and do them as much damage as possible. I had no idea who they were. After I expressed my goals, the 3 men started to smile. We can do that, Don said. Let us go to the bar or wherever they are going to meet. I will watch the bastards and get their license plate numbers. You know my brother is a cop. I can find out who they are. Do you have a location app on her cell phone? Ed asked. I nodded. Kristen always left her phone somewhere. Usually, I just had to call it and listen for the ringer to find it, but sometimes it was in her car. For someone who needed it so much for work, Kristen was very careless. I briefly thought about waiting to see if I could get information from her phone, but I got the impression that these dates were organized by Tammy and Sandra. Christine just participated. Be a man, Don said with a laugh after my statement. You are not giving your wife any chance. To my soon-to-be ex-wife, the slut, I corrected him. Jason and Ed called their wives to tell them they had to help a friend tonight and would explain later. Don was still single, still too jaded to have a steady girlfriend. How big are those guys, if it comes to that? Ed asked. I just want to know if I should have my telescopic baton handy. I told him I had one and would bring it, but I did not plan to stay long enough to get into trouble. I just wanted to let them know I had found them out, take some pictures, and get out of there. If Don could watch them and get the license plates, we would have enough. Yes, a fight could spoil the night, and a shootout would be worse. I knew that Ed shared the same philosophy as Jason, Don, and me: never start trouble, and if you can, escape. But before you let them destroy you, destroy the other bastard. Hey, would you mind if I slept with Kristen later? Ed asked, smiling. You do not have to wait, at least not for my sake. I am done with her. Although you might have to settle for her boyfriend's leftovers from tonight, I smiled back. The only thing is, as good as she is, I am not sure it is worth it. You know Melody is going to cut your member off as soon as she finds out. Don and Jason laughed. The joke made me feel a little better. Leaving the three of them getting ready for the night, I headed home. My phone rang before I arrived. It was Kristen. Hello, honey, she began cheerfully. Look, I know we talked about going out to dinner tonight, but something came up. Tammy is really down. It seems she broke up with her latest boyfriend and needs to vent, Christine began. I asked her if he had caught her cheating on him with another guy. She stammered in surprise. I do not know. Why? Just that she is really down. She thought this guy might be the one. I laughed at that. I could not help it. Seriously, she is down. Sandra and I are going to go to her place to keep her company. We will probably drink a bottle or 3 of wine, whatever it takes. We just want her to know we care. You do not have a problem with that, right? I would never have a problem with someone taking care of a friend in need, I said. Solid relationships are hard to find, you know. Someone you trust, who you know always has your back and takes care of you. Kristen seemed to hesitate, or was it just my imagination? Thanks, honey. I will be leaving in a few minutes. I told her I would be home in a few minutes too. She was still there when I arrived. Are you not going to take a bag in case you stay over? I asked, seeing she only had her purse. Like if you and Sandra drink too much to drive safely. She stammered and said she had a toothbrush in her purse. Yes, I guess with just the 3 of you women there you can sleep naked, I laughed. She blushed visibly. She walked out the door. I hurried to my room to take off my suit and change into jeans and a shirt suitable for a bar. I wanted a shirt I could wear untucked because I clipped my pistol inside my pants on my right side. I put my telescopic baton in my right back pocket and my wallet in my left. I hoped not to have to use any weapon, but I would rather hurt someone than be hurt myself if it came to that. Arrest would be inevitable either way. I called my brother Jason. He had also rushed home as soon as we left the bar. He had swapped his car with Don's to avoid being recognized. I went out the front door and started walking to the left again. Jason picked me up. We drove around the block and sat on the street where we could watch Sandra's house. We hoped they had not already left, but honestly, we assumed the women would take their time getting ready. After an hour of sitting, we were both bored and restless. According to the phone locator app, Christina was still at Sandra's house, but I wondered if she had left it there. I decided to call Kristen. Hello, I said when she answered. How is Tammy? She stammered. I did not let her get far. Put her on the phone. Let me talk to her. Maybe I can introduce her to one of the guys from the office. It worked for Sandra. She and Bob seem pretty happy. We have not arrived yet, Kristen replied. Sandra and I are still at her house. I asked her why they were taking so long to leave. Sandra had some calls to make first, and we wanted to talk a bit before going to Tammy's house, she replied calmly. We will be leaving soon. Are you still at home, or did you go out for dinner? I am sorry I did not have time to cook for you. No, Jason came by to pick me up. We are going to get something to eat and maybe have a drink or 2, since you will be out late, if you even come back tonight. She seemed relieved and told me to have fun. I told her to do the same and to be careful. I spoke loud enough for Sandra to hear me. We both heard Sandra ask Christine if I had taken the bait. I could not make out what she said, but they laughed together. Are you ready to go, then? I asked. Or are you talking about the guys, covering yourselves in perfume or dressed in sexy lingerie? If I were standing at the door, you could not change fast enough not to get caught. I hung up. Jason was smiling, amused. Playing with them, huh? Then he got serious. Of course, it is a shame it has come to this. I nodded, but told him at least now I knew, so I could cut my losses and move on with my life. So, there is no way you are going to try to fix this, even if we lose them tonight and cannot prove they are cheating. I shook my head and told him about the conversation I had heard earlier. That was enough for me. 20 minutes later, Sandra's garage door opened, and she backed out. We followed them easily. The women had no idea they might be followed, so they probably never looked back. I would bet they would not waste much time drinking. It was not like they had to seduce anyone or even play the game of being seduced. Their goal was to have sex, as much as possible. I called Don to keep them informed. They were already on the move. Sandra parked in the lot of a fairly quiet bar we all knew. It was a place known for being a hookup bar. They had some music, but for the most part, people sat, drank, and chatted, deciding if the person they were talking to was worth a potential encounter. If not, you went home or waited for the next one. No one gave anyone a second look, unless they were contemplating the potential for a future fling. Damn, Kristen is hot. Sandra too, Jason observed as we watched Kristen and Sandra get out of their car. From our position, we could see the two women adjusting their tight dresses. Dawn and Ed arrived. They came over, and I told them what the women were wearing. We watched as some men arrived and went inside. We had no idea if they were Eric and Richard. I did not want to go in too soon and spoil the surprise. Ed said he would go in to see if the women were alone or not. Both he and Dawn were wearing caps. I hoped Kristen would not recognize him too soon. He called from inside and said he had barely gotten his beer when two guys sat down with the women. They kissed them as if they were going to have sex right there in the bar. He told us where they were sitting. He quickly finished his beer and then went outside to help Dawn identify the guys' cars. He would stay close in case we needed help. Jason and I took out our phones and started recording as we walked in. Without saying anything, we approached the group and recorded them for a few seconds, capturing them as they snuggled with their arms intertwined. Sandra looked up and screamed when she saw us. "Hello, sluts," I said in a much louder tone than necessary. The look on Kristen's face was priceless. She started to babble. "Go ahead, sluts," I announced loudly. A silence fell over the bar. "I do not care, and do not bother coming home. I will pack your things and put them on the lawn tonight. You can go to that other slut's house." I pointed at Sandra with my free hand. "And you guys can also keep these married sluts after you have your fun tonight. I do not want her anymore. I am sure Sandra's husband will not want her either when he finds out about this." One of them started to get up. "Do not be stupid." I turned slightly and showed him the grip of my Glock above my belt line. Even in the dim lighting, he turned visibly pale. Jason and I turned around and walked out. I wondered how long it would take to get my first call or text. 10 minutes. "Yes, what do you want?" "Did your boyfriend finish playing with you?" I asked sarcastically. I put him on speaker for Jason's enjoyment. "See," Christine said, "it is not what it seems. These guys are just passing through on business. One is an old friend of Sandra's. She needed someone to accompany them, as a buffer." I could not believe she gave me the "it is not what it seems" line. I guess it was the only thing they could come up with in 10 minutes. I laughed. "Yes, the guy's arm was so far around your neck it could reach your chest. His other hand was under the table. I wonder if it was also under your dress. I cannot tell from the video, but it really does not matter. You lied, you cheated, it is over." "Oh, Jerry, please." When I pressed the icon to end the call. "You know I am going to go with you tonight," Jason said. I looked at him, surprised. "Do not argue. For the last few hours you have been running on anger-fueled adrenaline. You are acting pretty normal, although a little hyper. You are going to fall apart soon and you will crash. I am going to be there to keep you from doing something stupid or breaking down." I told him quietly that I appreciated it. He handed me his phone and told me to go to his contacts to call his wife. What the hell was she thinking? Sue, Jason's wife, yelled over the phone. I put her on speaker. "She is cheating on you. Throw the bitch's things on the lawn and lock the door." I could not help but laugh. "Thanks, Sue," I said. "I am glad you have my back. I appreciate it." "I would do the same to Jason if he cheated on me," Sue said. "And if I cheated on him, I would know to expect that or worse. Jason, stay with Jerry tonight and help him. Maybe you should consider taking a few days and going to the fishing camp and getting drunk once you have a handle on things." I loved my sister-in-law. "First things first, tequila, rum, or beer?" Jason asked when we got to my house. I told him beer was safer. He took out 2 and put several more in the fridge to cool. "Now, shall we start packing her things?" he asked with a smile. I knew it would not matter in the long run. I probably could not keep her out. I did not care about the house anyway, but I would make a statement, and I planned to make that statement as public as possible. We got a box of trash bags and started putting all her belongings in them, starting with her clothes. We started piling them on the front lawn, near the entrance. That was to make sure I was not accused of giving away her things. Where we lived, if you put things on the curb, they were considered available to anyone who wanted them. You would often find an appliance, an old television, or whatever on the curb between trash pickup days. Sofas and chairs were put out there when people upgraded. It was commonly accepted that these things were being given away. Anyone who wanted them could take them. It saved a trip to the dump and gave someone in need a chance. As I was putting Christina's things next to the house, I made sure they were not on the curb. We were almost finished when she and Sandra came home. "You cannot touch my things," she yelled. There was a police officer with them, but he stayed in his patrol car. He probably did not want to get involved in a domestic dispute if he did not have to. I asked the officer if she was right. "Sir, this is community property. You will have to work it out through a lawyer." I told him about the community property agreement. Everything was 50-50ths. I told him that for the most part, I had bought the things. Most of what she had brought into the marriage was still there, and I had not touched it. Besides, what about my property in the house if she got to keep the house and threw away something important? She arrived with Sandra. "Are you really going to throw my things out of the house?" she yelled. I nodded. It was only 9 o'clock at night at that point. We had started our adventure early. I raised my hand and grabbed the air horn I had in my fishing and boating gear. I started blowing it. After several loud blasts, neighbors started appearing from the nearby houses. They could tell something out of the ordinary was happening. Some held up their cell phones in case things got really interesting, but everyone just stared. I went out into the street, almost to the curb. My wife, Kristen, and her friend Sandra have been going out and having sex with guys, wild and uncontrolled, I announced loud and clear. I heard Kristen start to cry and plead behind me. I caught them tonight at a bar with their boyfriends. If anyone wants proof, I will be happy to show you the video. I want the slut out of my house. She can stay with her slut friend. I will be moving out in the next few days, and she can come back. "It is over," I greeted cordially. "How could you do that?" Christine asked, incredulous at my audacity to make such a public announcement. Sandra was well aware of the ramifications for her. I knew that if she had not already, she would soon call her husband. She sat on the lawn and cried her eyes out. She had only been married to Bob for a couple of years, but they had a prenuptial agreement. Knowing her history, I had taken him aside and warned him to protect himself. "Trust, but verify," I had told him. He took my advice. "You are trash. You have no proof that we did anything," Sandra said, trying to bluff. "So we sat in a bar with a couple of friends. So what?" I pointed to the bags and told them they had better move or they might disappear. Honestly, I was hoping the police would arrive soon. Sure enough, a patrol car arrived. While all this was happening, Jason was in my office making sure the contents of our phones, both his and mine, were uploaded to the cloud. I was busy explaining to the police how I had caught my wife cheating on me. The question was who would leave the house that night. An officer said it is usually the man. I told him I would be happy to, but my wife's things were already packed. He smiled, knowing I was playing for the body camera. Now, I am not sure that my wife will not destroy or damage my belongings. I have a home office where I have sensitive data from my job, so if you want me to leave instead of her, I want to be able to secure my things. A police sergeant was called. I repeated my position, barely keeping a straight face. He turned to Kristen. "Do you have a place to go tonight, ma'am, and to secure your things for the night?" She nodded with tears in her eyes. I thought the cops were going to laugh when I offered to help Christina carry her things, now in the trash bags, to Sandra's house. Half the neighborhood was now outside watching the show. Some offered to help, hoping to hear the whole story. "Please, can we talk?" Kristen asked me in a pitiful tone. I told her maybe in a day or two. Then, maliciously, I added loudly, "You had an hour after I left you at the bar before you came home, more than enough time for you to have sex." The offense hurt her so much that she walked away crying. I saw some neighbors laughing. Every word I said would be repeated and probably amplified as it spread. With all the activity at my house, Eric and Richard thought they had gotten away with it. They had not. Ed and Don watched them as they followed Jason and me outside and saw us leave. They looked at Kristen and Sandra and gave them a goodbye kiss, but no caresses, as other bar patrons were probably watching. Both men headed to their own cars and watched Kristen and Sandra get into Sandra's car. The delay ensured that Ed and Don had enough time to get not only the license plate number, but also the make and model of the vehicles. They even took videos as the men kissed the women goodbye. Then, they followed the men to their homes, presumably. Ed and Don called Jason to see how we were handling things. He told them to come to the house. We sat and laughed about what we had discovered. Ed was watching me closely. Finally, I looked at him and asked, "What? Dude, are you going to go crazy?" "I will stay to make sure you do not kill anyone," he offered. I was with Don when he went through it. My brother, Jason, said that he had said the same thing too. "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked, starting to get angry. Dude, I was right where you are now, just like Don said quietly. I spent a few days crying in my beer, thinking about what I had lost and feeling sorry for myself, before I realized how angry I was. I was not sure if I was more angry at myself for being stupid or at my wife and her lover for cheating on me. It was them for sure. I barely restrained the urge to kill the scumbag and my wife. Don laughed at the memory. A few days passed, but I started to feel bad for not having paid attention and not seeing the signs for so long. I felt like an idiot. And what did you do? I asked. I suspected there was much more to the story than they had admitted. Nothing. I just got divorced, Don said with a half smile. Well, and I let the guy's wife know he was cheating on her. Ed started to laugh. I looked at him. Now I knew there was much more to the story. That is our official story, Ed said. Don lied and I confirmed it. I am sorry, Don, but Jerry needs to hear this. Don smiled and told Ed to continue. We started a little campaign against the scumbag. The guy knew Cal was married. Sure, I am sorry, Don. We try not to use her name. Her official name is Cheater, and that is how we refer to her, Ed explained. In less than a day, the guy got a good lesson. He never knew who did it. He did not need much medical attention, just a lot of ice to stop the swelling in his testicles. Even though his wife found out he was unfaithful and sued him, taking him to court, the guy kept having all sorts of problems. His garden shed, where he kept his gardening equipment, caught fire. His tires seemed to go flat frequently. He could not go to a bar without someone sucker punching him, and once on the ground, he received a couple of kicks in the. He had a bad streak. His boss knew he was a cheater and did not fire him, but told him he was on probation. When he tried to change jobs, that story followed him. I mean, bad luck, you know, Ed said. And what happened to him? I asked. Oh, he moved to Georgia. He tried to start over, Don said. Interestingly, after a month or so, his new boss found out why he had left Louisiana. It seems they do not like guys who have relationships with co-workers there as much as here. He has had a tough couple of years. Did you really harass him that much? I asked. They had never told me this before. It seems like a lot of effort once you get rid of him. Everyone needs a hobby, Don laughed. I still fish and hunt, but I am not married, so I have a lot of free time at night. The hours just beg for me to do something, unless there is a good movie, of course. Of course, Ed said. Tell him about the. Oh yes. It seems she has trouble getting a steady boyfriend. I mean, more than 2 dates, Don said. Guys may like a wild one in their bedroom, but few want to hear their mother's rant after seeing a video of their new girlfriend and potential daughter-in-law having sex with a guy while married. And her co-workers have copies of her escapades, Don laughed. Especially the wives of her male colleagues are understandably concerned. I started to laugh. Now I wish I had not gotten ahead of myself, I said, wiping tears of laughter from my eyes. I am going to miss out on that fun. Don shrugged. It has been fun, but I think it is time to move on. It takes a lot of effort. Of course, she knows who is behind her problems. A few months ago, she asked me what she could do to get me to stop bothering her. I was very careful not to reveal my cards or let her trap me. She would sue me for that. I never told you guys. Only he knew. We laughed. I started to wonder what I could do. Let us think about it before we act, Ed offered. You acted very quickly. It has only been 7 hours since you found out all this. The others agreed. Jason reported what his wife, Sue, said about taking some time, going to the fishing camp to drink. The camp was technically our father's, but Jason and I used it whenever we wanted. Oh, hell yes, Ed declared. I know my wife will agree with that, especially if I bring back a lot of fish. Now I feel bad for not having protected myself with a prenuptial agreement, I confessed. I knew that Christine's 2 closest friends are inveterate sluts. I should have thought of it. The 3 of them told me that we all make mistakes, that I would learn for the next time. Finally, we went to bed. I lay there for a while, wondering if I could sleep. Then, I realized that the conversations with my friends helped more than a group of counselors. I felt better and turned over to close my eyes. I was asleep. I woke up refreshed. I did not even have a hangover. Kristen wanted to talk the next day. I asked her why. She came over to meet me mid-morning. I told her I would only talk to her on the front lawn, not behind closed doors. I had my phone in my pocket, recording. She tried to explain how my appearance at the bar stopped her from doing something stupid. How many times before that did you have sex with them or with their other friend, Brian? I asked. She looked at me with wide eyes. She recognized that I knew much more about her activities than what I saw at the bar last night. She stammered for a few seconds, but did not answer. I have some good news and some bad news, I offered with a smile. She looked at me with hope. The good news is that I paid off the credit card before I canceled it. I also paid the utility bills, so they are covered for the next month. Also, I paid off all our loans. We are debt-free. The bad news is that we only had about $700 left between savings and checking. I took my share, I said. She looked at me in horror. I shrugged. Some of those bills were long-term notes we were paying off, like the car loans. Both vehicles were in both of our names. If she could not or would not make the payments, I knew the banks would come after me to pay them. Well, you still have several options, I said. You and Sandra can move in with your lovers or with Tammy. I am pretty sure Bob is going to kick her out as part of the prenuptial agreement they have, and I plan to put our house up for sale immediately. A real estate agent is the second call I plan to make on Monday. The first is a lawyer. Can we not talk about this? Kristen said, pleading. What is there to talk about? I asked, trying to stay firm. My heart was breaking, but my anger prevailed. You are the one who decided to mess around with others. Surely you knew what the outcome would be once I found out. Of course, you never thought I would. But as I was saying, you have options. I do not have the report on their personal lives yet. I am waiting for that so I can inform their wives, if they have them. Are they married? Do they have children? God, Kristen, you cannot destroy their lives. And why is that a problem? I asked, trying to keep my voice as reasonable as possible. They had no consideration for their marriages or for mine. So as far as I am concerned, all the dirty laundry is put on the floor and everyone can see it for what it is, every single stain. From now on, unless you have something productive to say, why do not you go back to Sandra's house? She started to walk away and then stopped. Did you call Bob? She asked. I smiled and nodded. Of course I had called Bob. I did it last night before I got drunk. I brought him up to speed and told him about Don's suggestions for handling the finances first. Bob did not have as much debt as I did, but he paid off and canceled his credit cards and took 75% of the available money, just as the prenuptial agreement would have granted him. Bob called me this morning to see what I had accomplished and to tell me he would be back in town by mid-morning. I was busy with the money transfers and half drunk when we talked last night. His anger and pain were palpable. He had really loved Sandra. He had told me in private last year that he felt bad for asking for the prenuptial agreement, but he got it anyway when I insisted. Last night, he reminded me of that conversation and told me that he was now glad he had listened to me. I told him to get home safely and that we would work on this together. I saw Kristen walking towards Sandra's house. She looked dejected. Her shoulders slumped as she dragged herself along. Of course, these women could get by and get their lives back. They were beauties. I reflected on what Don had said last night, how everyone needs a hobby, and his was messing with his ex and her boyfriend. I did not have the information to do anything against those three guys yet, but I knew where Christina was vulnerable. It was cruel, sadistic, even unjustified if all of the above, but I did it anyway. I took out my cell phone. Hello, Mrs. Sullivan. I greeted the woman who answered. Since when do you call me Mrs. Sullivan? She asked. Not since you started dating Chris. I have always been Mom. Well, that is the problem, I said. I love you. You have always been there for me, but things have changed. I wanted you to know that Kristen and I are getting a divorce. To say that the almost 50-year-old woman was in shock would be an understatement. What? She exclaimed. A week ago you told me you had decided to have a baby. Well, that was before I found out that Christine has been cheating on me, I said. She and her friends, Sandra and Tammy, have been seeing three guys whenever they can. Kristen goes when I am at my fishing camp. She avoids going with me and entertains one of these guys instead. Mrs. Sullivan asked if I was sure. I have an audio recording of it, and last night I followed her to a bar. Her behavior at the bar certainly did not pass the wife test. In fact, her actions would not be allowed in most bars in the city, I said. I have a video. That stupid girl, Mrs. Sullivan complained. I thought she had left her wild ways behind when she married you. She said she had. She started to cry. Please, stay close, Jerry. I have to go. She hung up. I felt bad for hurting this kind woman, but I also did not want Kristen to establish the narrative with her family and make me look like the villain. 30 minutes later, I received a furious call from Kristen. How dare you, she yelled. What? I asked innocently. You know what? How could you tell my mom I was seeing other people? She yelled. Was it not the truth? She hung up on me. Bob arrived. He did not even bother to stop at his house. He wanted to talk to me first. After we talked, and he had copies of my audio file and the video of Sandra kissing a man whose hands seemed to be where they should not be, we went to his house. I am here to pick up my things, or at least enough clothes for a few days, he announced. Sandra looked back and forth between Bob and me. She took out her mobile phone. If anything is damaged, destroyed, or has been tampered with in any way, I will press criminal charges against you. Let this be a warning, she warned. She walked through the house taking videos. I had not thought of that. I took out my own mobile phone. Kristen, I am going home, and I am going to make a video of our place. If anything is destroyed or stolen later, I will press criminal charges against you. And that includes if you let any of your lovers into the house, and they cause the damage. I did not know if this was legal, but the result was excellent. Christine sat down and cried. I doubt she would have thought of destroying anything herself, but I was not taking any chances. 24 hours earlier, I would not have dreamed she would cheat on me either. Bob picked up several weeks of clothes, and we took them back to my house. You know, I really thought Sandra had changed. She told me several times that she had been well, her description was pretty wild, but that it was all in the past. She wanted to be my loving wife and the mother of my children. I feel like a fool. She even went off the pill a few months ago. Oh, I hope she's not pregnant. Of course I would do a DNA test, but even if I were the father, I would still have to deal with child support. I told him not to worry about it until it happened. Don, Ed, and Jason arrived with a couple of boxes of beer. So, everything is solved with beer, I joked. No, it just makes it a little more tolerable, Don replied. I told them what I did with Kristen. Don laughed and congratulated me. Bob had done something similar to protect himself. His debts were smaller, but now they were eliminated and he had transferred his share to another account. Jason laughed, saying he could take a long trip and spend weeks in Cabo with all the money now in his checking account. Bob and I needed an account to put our money in. I did not have much, but he did. We could not open an account last night, so we transferred our funds to Jason's account. My brother checked the license plate numbers, Don reported. He cannot say anything officially, of course, but I have names and addresses. I told them that Christine mentioned the guys were married and had children. Well, before we drink too much, I want to see what I can find out about the wives, I said. Bob, I am in the mood for a little scorched earth retaliation. What do you think? He smiled and took out his laptop. Finding Eric and Richard was easier than I imagined. Both had Facebook profiles complete with photos of their wives and children. Their wives were on their contact lists. Getting a cell phone number for each woman was simple. Each man had a few contacts named Brian, and a couple were common. We did not want to notify the wife of an innocent man. I called and made the introduction to Richard's wife. I got straight to the point. I explained the whole situation. To say the woman was angry would be an understatement. He had cheated on her before. She felt comfortable letting him go out with his two friends because she believed it would keep him from straying, at least on those occasions. Let me guess, Brian is one of the friends, but he was not available last night. Do you know his wife? She did. I asked her if she would like to meet, and I would give her a copy of the audio file as well as the video I took last night. She definitely wanted to meet as soon as possible. I offered to call Eric's wife, and she said she would do that, as well as Brian's, and would call me back to arrange a meeting. 15 minutes later, she called me. I was surprised at the speed. She told me she was not going to waste any time. I made copies of the recordings for both women. We met at a local coffee shop. Bob and I were there, and we stood up when 3 informally dressed women entered. The women appeared to be in their late 30s, a few years older than us. They wore little makeup, but each one was very pretty. I offered to buy them coffees, which they accepted. I played the original recordings for them. So, this has been going on for a while, observed Catelyn, Richard's wife. I told them I had no idea how the men met our wives. They had not seen Sandra or Christina before. I took out a photo of Tammy. Brian's wife recognized her. She works with Brian. Tamara or something like that. I have seen her at company events. I guess that is where it started. She and Brian had an affair, and it expanded on a large scale with the other women. It seems the guys refused to share their partner for the night, but they switched partners anyway. And from what I heard, everything is very unrestrained. Any action is acceptable. I explained that I was going to file for divorce as soon as possible and what Bob and I had done with our finances. I saw the wheels turning. Well, I am going to go shopping before I go home, Richard's wife announced. There is a dress in a boutique that I have been looking at. Maybe I will find a few dresses. A woman I know bought some things and returned them for cash afterwards. Maybe I will get dressed up and ask Richard if I look as good as Christine and Sandra did last night. When I walk through the door, just before I tell him to get lost, he will know something is up when Eric gets home and finds his things on the lawn this afternoon. Anyway, I am sure Eric will call him as soon as he arrives, before he even comes in, said Eric's wife. I told her I had bagged up Kristen's clothes. I could bag something up just to help get it outside, but then I am going to throw it all away. His suits, I am just going to throw them away. I like your idea of a horn to alert the neighbors. You say they can be bought in the fishing section of any store. I nodded. Bob and I were laughing openly. We better get started. They will be playing golf this afternoon and will be home around 6. I wondered how long the rage would last before the crying started. These women were tough, but I remembered what Dawn had said. I mentioned it. We have discussed this among ourselves before, after I caught Richard the first time. We even insisted that we all have post-nuptial agreements, not too unbalanced, but with serious penalties, said Kathleen. We had a hypothetical plan to support each other and how to crucify our husbands for helping or covering up if one of the others had an affair. Now we know they are all involved. Our children are in their teens. They will find out tonight. They are old enough. The other women nodded. We said goodbye after exchanging phone numbers. It seems those 3 scumbags thought the same 3 sluts would be easy to hide. I never heard where they met. I guess at Tammy's house mainly. They thought they had it under control, Bob said. Thank God your car needed repair and you did not stay waiting the rest of the afternoon at my house. We spent it drinking beer. We had to order takeout for dinner, as none of us was in a condition to drive. Sandra called Bob. He put the call on speaker. Why did you have to involve Tamia and Brian? They were not even there last night, she lamented. The wives of all 3 are threatening divorce, and Brian's wife says she is going to report him to Brian's boss. Tammy called us all upset because she could be fired at the same time. I could not help it. I started to laugh. Let me ask you something, Bob said. We were betting that most of the time they met at Tammy's house for their little feasts. The motel rooms must have been quite expensive and limited in space. Sandra hesitated, but did not confirm or deny. Well, Tammy isn't it up to her neck anyway. To hell with her. She deserves it, Bob said. The events of the following week unfolded as we expected. Bob and I hired the same lawyer, the one who had drafted his prenuptial agreement. Kristen and Sandra were served at work midweek. Both houses were put up for sale. We listed them with the same agent as well. We explained the circumstances and said that although we knew we did not have much equity, we were going to negotiate the sales so as not to have many additional expenses. I have always heard that any effort is 90% preparation and 10% execution. A divorce is the same. Once we set things in motion, our part was pretty much finished. The lawyers would take care of everything from there. I found a small apartment. Separating the furniture and other common property was easy. Most of the things went to separate storage units, and we hired an estate sale company to sell the rest for cash. I almost screwed up in the courtroom. I started to make a comment about how the girls could make a living going professional, if not actively as escorts, then as online escorts. The kick my lawyer gave me under the table left a bruise on my shin. Idiot, she said, frowning at first, then softening it with a smile. There are things you cannot say in court. Kristen's lawyer has already mentioned that you have told all her coworkers, friends, family about her infidelities. You do not want to add to that. That comment, that could play against you and you could find yourself paying alimony. Just keep your comments to yourself. I nodded. Sandra, Christine, and Tammy became roommates again after 7 years. Tammy could not afford the rent on her own after losing her job. She seemed to have trouble finding another job as good as the one she had lost. Her new boss, somehow, would hear her life story. All of Don's co-workers knew what he did to destroy his marriage. Also, his job seemed to have stalled, but I would bet that men were lining up for a chance with her, despite the watchful eyes of their wives. Sandra's job at the mall was not enough to support her without the help of the others. Bob and I followed the girls' relationships for about a year after our divorce. We took a page from Don's hobby book and let any man that one of them dated more than twice know all about them. Eventually, we got bored with the effort. Brian was fired at the same time as Tammy. I heard he had some good job offers. He definitely needed them. His minimum child support and alimony were set according to his post-nuptial agreement. Although I felt sorry for his family, his new boss and co-workers quickly found out the details of why he lost his previous position. He was not a happy man being treated like an outcast. Richard and Eric did not do much better, although they still kept their jobs. Bob and I were happy to be single for now. I was only 29 and in no hurry to get married again. I had some prospects. One of the best was the younger sister of one of Jason's coworkers. I met her at a barbecue party at Jason's house. I knew it was a setup date. We went out several times and seemed compatible. She took up so much of my free time that I reduced my part in the campaign against the 6 cheaters. We both agreed, hypothetically, on a prenuptial agreement if we ever got serious about marriage. She did not think one would be necessary, as she stated, while we were at the fishing camp one afternoon. If my husband ever cheated on me, I would feed his ass to the alligators after using his balls as fish bait. This story has certainly had a lot of intensity, and karma has come to hit those 3 friends in the face. What an idea to continuously take revenge on the 6 cheaters. That will certainly make them learn from their mistakes, or, at least, make them quite unhappy.